Hello ladies and gentlemen, it is currently Thursday, April 11, 2013, and this is Day 9 Daily number 571, where we're actually going to learn to be a better gamer today. I swear to God that's going to happen. Let me just move these assorted bottles of hot sauce away. I was recently eating, and I hope soon to continue to be eating. In today's Daily, we're going to be watching two Terran vs. Protoss games between MMA and Sage. Really good players from the Teamstory Cup, I believe being put on by Takesen from Take TV. Hope that's accurate. Either way, Take's awesome. You should totally know who he is. He's does a lot of hosting for ESL and runs the Home Story Cup. I want to get through the announcements as fast as possible. We are playing 2v2v2v2s and mono battles with subscribers tomorrow. Go to twitch.tv/day9tv to grab a subscription if you'd like to play, or if you'd like to watch, you can do that because I'll be streaming for 7 hours tomorrow. Fun Day Monday is on Monday. Go to day9.tv for the info of what it is and how to submit. There's a 4v4 Fun Day Monday so you and all your buddies can play, and I'm done with the announcements. Wasn't that clean? I thought so. I want to get to the games today. Let me drink water. Here's the dealio. There's a term that a lot of people will use, especially when talking to one of their buddies who's trying to learn. Standard. Standard. You gotta learn to play standard, man. What are you doing trying to go mech versus Protoss? Why don't you play standard? Apparently everyone is from California in this example. I really think that you should play Terran in a standard way. And standard actually does not quite have, I think, the correct connotations to it, because in a sense, if you are playing with the absolute best of the best of the best players, they're not really going to let you get away with playing standard. They're going to be doing weird openings, odd harassment types, judging weakness, and striking it really hard. You might lose your Robo-Bay. How do you snap back from that? And this is one of the reasons why I like to advocate this whole notion of having a good underlying skeletal structure to your play. Just generic goals that we'll see pop up. So in this game, we're going to see some just weird play from both players, and this is going to be some more of a standard analysis of two games between MMA and Sage, but I'd like to emphasize that we can still see the underlying solid structure that they'll all drift back to. So I'll go ahead and introduce our players. Look how swiftly I got into the game. What is this unheard of efficiency? This is so unlike me. Haha. We have MMA spawning in the top corner. MMA is going to be doing some very funky playing. He's going to be doing some really aggressive mine-type strategies and some drop-type strategies. And I paused because down in the bottom right, we can find out that this barcode player is Root Gaming Sage, who will be enduring some of this pressure. He'll actually forget warp gates. Warp gate play is actually going to not come in for a while. So, of course, this is another good example of the mistakes that can go on. But MMA, his core underlying structure of all Terrans, I will just note is... Did it pause? Is it crashing? What? Ah! Ah! Are we still here? Is everybody okay? Am I going to run out of hard drive space? No, I have many gigabytes free. Okay, I hope... Okay, that was terrifying. Anyways, so Terrans have a tendency to want to get 2 base, 3 racks, 1 starport, plus 1 attack. There's your standard early game formation, and following that is 3 base, 5 racks, 2 eBay, and of course the 1 starport still hangs out there. But these are the skeletons, and one of the reasons why I actually did not... Oh, dang. This guy, post Root Imbazard. One of the reasons why I didn't include the starport count is that you might respond to a heavy Colossus player by getting another starport. You might respond to a heavy gateway usage player by getting more barracks or a Ghost Academy. But the important thing is there's that skeleton of 3 racks on 2 bases and 5 racks as you go up to 3 bases. Damn it, I didn't have the sound on. Damn it all to hell. Crap, crud butts. So let's go ahead and do sort of a normal analysis of this game, shall we? The gases are the big things I want to look at from the Protoss player early on, but the Terran player, suffice to say, is just going for an early gas. This means that this Terran player must do damage, otherwise he is way behind. Gas openings are not good unless they have a damage dealing component. So for instance, if if you were going for a fast gas strategy and you were doing like siege tank to siege up and defend, it's probably a weak opening because you're not actually applying pressure. So the reason I'm super interested in these gas timings, like, oh, look at that, gas on 18, is that there's some interesting choices to make with the early stalker, the mothership core, when to get those, how to get those. We kind of need a lot of gas to get an early mothership core as well as the rest of our stuff. But we don't really need a ton of gas after that. And this is actually really sick. Sage. Okay, did you see that? Sage actually barely misses this by the skin of his teeth. So there's a this is an increasingly common opening. The first step, I think, anytime there's a new threatening opening, such as, you know, Proxy Widow Mines, very popular on Belshir Vestige, is scouting rather than big build order adjustment. So this is something I found pretty gnarly. Going for the mothership core and the stalker with chrono boost right away, and then not putting 3 guys in each gas geyser. Actually going to be pulling these out. The last thing he ends up getting is warp gate, but he totally whiffs it. Lol. In the meantime, MMA. Actually, I think MMA is a pretty strong defensive player. He always has really aggressive strategies, but has some pretty smartly thought out defenses. So MMA checks in here, sees the usual sort of mining going on. Interestingly, Sage tapers off on the gas, and eventually is not even really mining out of some of the geysers. 1 zealot, 1 stalker, 1 completely missed factory. Yuckies. Now in this position, this is kind of an unusual mining opening. Generally, players who go for mines kind of have the factory up here. They intend on following it up with a starport and an expansion. All that goody goodness, using the mines in some sort of drop play. But in this position, this factory can't really be used for defense. So, in my eyes, there needs to be a much stronger ground-based defense here. So, MMA does his usual thing. He's starting this at 4 minutes. So that way the bunker will be done by 5 minutes, which is generally when 2 stalkers could possibly be out doing the threatening things. And Nexus and Sentry coming out. Completely, totally whiffed on the warp gate. Ha 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 ha. Waka waka waka. Alright. So MMA is doing his cute little placement. He can always get a refund, as annoying as this may be. See, 5 minutes is about when a second stalker would come up and this mothership core could get in the action. So this is actually super slick placement. I think this is really rad. I think that's way bold, but that's fine. It's MMA, so I'm sort of cool with that. And then MMA runs in to give the troubles. So this is these Widow Mines, I think, are interesting when they're coming in from this angle. I don't care that much about this mothership core. Time warps, no, whatever, that's cool. This is mainly a scout for Sage. But these Widow Mines almost guarantee that you will know whether or not he's expanding. And in the case that there is an expansion, that most of Sage's army will have to pull way the heck back. So these mines are defending this command center indirectly for now, but still I'm of the opinion that MMA needs to do some sort of barracks-based defense. He can't really get away with, you know, going for a starport, which is more of a usual technique to deal with some other annoyances that, you know, the Protoss could be doing early on. Allows the medevac to come out. It's just a little too thin of the defense. Yeah, so then the barracks come up. So kind of a funky barracks, Widow Mine, barracks play. 1 mine right there. Sage is immediately having some troubles. I think not willing to risk throwing down a... Or actually was willing to risk throwing down the force field. This is the sort of, like, anything that I can do, I'm definitely going to do. To try to hold this off. I have no idea what this is. I will just straight out the bat say I have no idea. I rewatched this replay, and I could not find for the life of me what SCV was going to build that barracks, whether it was just like a total misclick, but there it is, the barracks going down. And, you know, you heard me kind of talk about the skeletal structure. The skeletal structure, once again, is 3 racks, 2 base, plus 1 attacks, 1 starport. or as I like to call it, one Sean plot. Despite this crazy-ass opening with the Widow Mines, everything is structurally looking the same. Stim, combat shield, getting ready, getting started pretty early. Some Marines popping out. And there's a lot of coordination that I really like coming out of MMA. Especially upon seeing this Stalker there, and upon seeing the Sentry also trying to get involved in the action. Like here, this is useful information, this Sentry. These Marines can just move out pretty freely. Take this watchtower, at the very least shut down vision. MMA's being a real jerk butt. And one of my most favorite things of all, MMA is actually not over-mining. Back in the main base, we see that he's still getting his command center up, he's still getting his starport up, he's getting his second gas to support his starport production, he's still churning out Marines, usual things. It's very easy to forget that as great as any amount of damage is, killing off 3 workers, getting some free things, it's not nearly as important as the rest of the build order. I'm actually going to turn off these funky colors so that way we can just look at things normally. So Sage is in kind of a crappy position. He's been forced to be defensive, he lost his mothership core. Doesn't really matter where, it's gone now. And this is one of the punishments that we kind of receive for not having that factory in our base. We can't just double medevac production right away, but that's okay. MMA's pretty on par with everything else. So, alright, I've been focusing a lot on MMA, why I like his build order. I'm going to come back to that in a little bit. A lot of Protoss players have been wondering what the hell do you do as a Protoss who's generally going to be stuck on 2 bases for a long time, especially if you've been receiving damage. Double gas before 8 minutes. I think 8 minutes is one of those times where if you're not getting pressured that hard, if you're just getting harassed, you really kind of got to churn that out really fast. These gosh guys. And everything else Sage does. He doesn't have Warp Gate yet, he kind of forgot that. Only just now getting it up. But okay, so we're going to be defensive for the time being. We've seen Widow Mines, so we know that drops could be a potential coming up soon. We're probably not going to have a gigantic attack at the front, so a lot of units aren't needed, but a lot of flexibility is needed. And since we're going to be on these 2 bases for a while, may as well maximize all the useful things we can do on 2 base. Which generally is beginning the upgrades early. Why not go for Colossus right now? Because we're not going to be up against a lot of units. We're going to be up against a lot of variety, like harassment drops, Widow Mines, and we need just enough units with detection and good positioning. So Observer and good positioning, and I do like these players who identify, you know, okay, there's an expand, or I should say there's this expand coming up. I can easily go to Forge and be in good shape. I'm actually going to back up 10 seconds because I think the point I want to make is a little more sensible in this spot. Yeah, Sage says, alright, he expanded. He's not going for some sort of 1-1-1 all-in kind of thing. I sort of anticipated this. Alright, great. And then Sage is like, alright, well, I'm just going to stay minimal on the defense. Look, there's not even really that many sentries. In fact, this is the best part about most Heart of the Swarm things. Heart of the Swarm Protoss strategies. Generally, gas is what you needed to stay alive. But now, with the Mothership Core, you can cut sentries early on and just go for the Mothership Core defense, go for the Photon Overcharge, and just do 2 warp-in rounds while the Photon Overcharge is up and running. This allows for the gas to be spent on these stupidly early 1-1 upgrades, even before Colossus. So I like that. But again, there's the grody period where it's like, oh, let's be British, right? Oh, bollocks, he's got a 3rd. Bollocks. Right? The 3rd base, when this goes down, I know many moans and groans from a lot of my Protoss buddies are like, God, he had a 3rd base on. There's this urge to want to put on pressure. But I was actually watching Rotterdam's stream, and Rotterdam talks a little bit about that there, where as long as you're Protoss and you are building a lot of probes, never stopping on 2 base, and even chrono boosting probes a reasonable amount, occasionally over the chrono boost of these forges. When the 3rd base can eventually pop up, you get instantly saturated, whereas the Terran player tends to be behind when he's being very, very aggressive like this. So as Sage, we can actually look at the income. Actually, hell, I'll bring up this thing, because who doesn't love bars? Sage is not behind at all in the mineral front. Yes, even with 3 mules out. Still not far behind at all. So here's that photon overcharge and the minimal necessity of units. Just enough to make sure that there's the good défense. Now this is something that, for a while, when Heart of the Swarm came out, I found to be a real pain in the ass. Stalkers are expensive as all hell. And by expensive, I mean they eat into the ability to build anything else. For every stalker, if you build like, 2 rounds of stalkers, well, it means you're guaranteed to still be on 3 gateways. This is why the starting of the forges is so essential. The stalkers are needed to deal with the harassment of all types, mines, medevacs, small marine forces. So because they're needed, we're burning any edge we have in tech. So starting these early on is going to be hugely beneficial. I think this is probably the biggest difference between winning and losing players of about the same skill level, is just these early forges. And in the meantime, look at MMA. He just did the usual rounding out of his composition. And we see the skeleton structure emerging again. Sure, he went for this weird Widow Mine proxy and is occasionally doing some nice Widow Mininess as well. But still going for the 3 racks starport with the plus ups. Now adding on his 5 racks, his 3rd base, and soon enough we'll see a 2nd engineering bay somewhere. But here's where I thought something was particularly brilliant by Sage. Okay, so we're Sage, we're Protoss, we know, alright, well I want to get a 3rd at some point. He's taking a 3rd without Twilight Council, with just 3 gates, with no Colossus. Why the hell is he doing that? Easy. He saw the 3rd command center, he got mine harassed, and he just did a little bit of damage. All those things take away from a Terran's ability to have a lot of stuff. 13 Marines and 3 Marauders, no problem. And Sage is actually even expanding right in front of MMA. So this is not like a hidden, I'm going to try to get tricky. This is him actually being a considerable boss. So, okay, we've now held off 2 drops. What now? Great, and finally a period where we can do some tech stuff. I will note, I count adding gateways as tech purely because it's like one of those buildings that we really need. Actually, that's not the way to put it. Why do I put those as equivalent? I count gateways as tech because all the things that screw up our ability to get extra tech also screw up our ability to get gateways. If we're building a ton of stalkers because we're under a lot of pressure, we're still not building gateways. So when I say rounding out tech, I do mean this as well. Rounding out these gateways. I know that that's technically incorrect, but I just want to say that note because I will be continuing to use that term slightly wrong for the rest of the daily. So yeah, he finally has some freedom to do some teching. Great. This robotics facility makes a lot of sense. Why? Because we're getting to the point where Terrans should start getting a big army. And Chrono Boost on the probes. Chrono Boost on the probes. Chrono Boost where? Not on the forges. Yeah. Yes, sir. And we're seeing 51 probes, looking very good in that probie count. And the Twilight Council will soon be added on. A more typical number of gateways used to be around 6, especially 7 and 8, once this Nexus is coming up. But Stalkers are becoming so freaking unbelievably important for dealing with those fast medevacs that a few Stalkers with a few sentries being the norm means that it's a lot more expensive of an army. So this is what I was kind of talking about these annoying skeletal structures that we have to keep track of. Excuse me, these annoying drops that we have to keep track of means that it messes up our sort of overarching goals with the build order. But at this point in time, as I'm glancing around, the only real thing that I want to note that I like about MMA is, I mean, certainly MMA is playing great, but there's only really 2 things to note. One is that going for double reactor, so there's actually 3 barracks with reactor. Normally you have 2 barracks with reactor, and 2 barracks with reactor and 3 with tech lab for a lot of marauders. But the Marines are the anti-gateway unit. So this is one of these like subtle adjustments where you can say to yourself, okay, well, I'm not seeing a lot of colossus stuff, so I'm going to focus on the gateway unit killers, which are the Marines. I honestly think that it's a little bit of an oversimplification to be like, should I go Vikings or should I go Ghosts? The Marines are another whole dimension of things, or so I should say the Marauder/Marine thing is a whole other dimension to consider. For instance, for GG, if he sees, okay, you're going Colossus tech, then very often we'll have 4 barracks with Tech Lab add-on, and only 1 with Reactor, and have a lot of Marauders and be really barreling down the front. MMA is identifying, oh, I've been seeing a lot of gateway units. Oh, I have seen you take a 3rd base. Oh, I've dropped in here and killed off the Robo. All these things are great factors to contribute to the strength of Marines. We're going to be up only against gateway units. So there's this intermediary middle step that MMA is really focusing hard on. How do I deal all the damage in the now, knowing that he has gateway units? And of course, Sage staying, how do I stay alive with this force? And because Sage has been really good with his probe production, he's really not even falling behind to an unreasonable degree in this mineral count. When we come back, I want to talk about this gas geyser timing at these various bases, because we haven't looked at that, and then how MMA is going to continue to attack and how Sage is going to continue to defend. Also, we'll look at how Sage adjusts his composition based upon what he sees. And, you know, will he begin going for Zealot Archon? Will he stick with Colossus Stalker? We'll look at a little bit of that. And, of course, we'll look at what the hell Sage is seeing that is going to trigger him to attack. Come back, and we're going to finish this game, and we're going to watch another one. Done. Ba-da-da-dum-dum-dum-da-da-da-dum. On the break.